Good day, everyone. I am super excited for this interview. This is another amazing interview, and I am joined by none other. Can I call you doctor? Can I call you Dr.
Almost,
Cornelia?
almost, not quite, almost.
Okay,
Almost.
all right. Well, I have Miss Cornelia in the studio with me on today, and for another juicy conversation about getting back to you, this journey back to you, because it really is all about you. And when we don't take time to make it about us, not from a place of arrogancy or from a place of we're better than, but just from a place of mental health, from a place of self care and self love. Because the truth of the matter is, I can't help you if I can't help me. So I must help me so that I can have space to help you. And so we're going to get into this conversation on today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, I am Dr. Obiama Martin, your premier accountability coach. And this is being brought to you by Amazing You Day. This day is focused on helping you to pause so that you can love on you, forgive you, and show yourself some self compassion and self. Miss Cornelia, how are
Yes,
you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am breathing on schedule.
Hey, look, that's a good thing to be breathing on schedule.
I am breathing on schedule. I'm breathing on schedule. So, first, thank you for saying yes, because I know your schedule is extremely tight. So, I am honored that you said yes.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for having me and thank you for asking.
Yes, absolutely. And so, I want you to share with the people just a little bit about who you are and the work that you do in the world.
Sure. So I am the CEO of a company called 3C Consulting. We're a firm that specializes in the retention and advancement of mission critical talent. So we work all across business and industry, sports and entertainment, helping organizations and teams really think about and think through their culture strategy and ensure that their leaders are empowered with the clarity, capability, and capacity to lead the organization where they really want to go.
Awesome. And so, in doing so, that requires a lot of work life balance, right? So, my question to you are, or is rather, what are three things that have become pillars for you as you have overcome obstacles in business and in life?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing for me has really been boundaries. I wrote this little, oh, it's over here. Oh, it's over, where is it? It's over here. Over here. There it is. There it is. Okay, there it is. There we go. That little ditty right there. There we go. Back in 2014, called Design Your Life. And it's all about how you can create a meaningful life, advance your career, and live your dreams. And in that book, I talk about the need for establishing your say yes standards. Under what conditions will you give someone your yes? And every time you give someone your yes, you're saying 1,000 no's, right? There's 1,000 other things, Obiama, as you mentioned, I could be doing right now, right? I got a lot going on always, as just everybody else that's watching this, right? You said yes to this broadcast, which means you said no to 1,000 other things. And so your yes is a precious gift when you give it. But oftentimes we don't treat it like that, especially as women. We say that, we have to give to everybody else, give to things that we don't even want to give to. How many times have you said yes to something you didn't even want to do? And so the first thing I would say is you got to get clear about your say yes standards. Under what conditions does somebody get your yes? I think the second thing I've really had to learn over the course of my life has been a piece around resilience, right? So, you know a little bit of my backstory. We spent a couple of weeks together out of the country, the beginning of 2022, 2023, 2023, 2022, 2023. Life is going too fast. Um, and so, as part of my journey, I had two very significant incidents happen with my mother. The first of which was while I was a professional woman working in corporate America. My mother got diagnosed with cancer just before I got promoted to the right job. The one that sets you up for all the other good jobs, right? And like any good mother, for moms listening out there, you would say to your child what my mom said: go, I'll be fine, right? And so off I went, like 2,000 miles away from my parents, and I was in the role for several months, and my father had a stroke. And not only did he have a stroke, but he went 12 hours without medical attention. And so for us as a family, that was very stressful because I'm an only child. And so off I went. I traipsed back to Michigan from New Mexico and got there in time to see my dad. And when I left him, I was like, I can't do this. My mother's going to cancer treatment. My father's had a stroke. Like, something has to give. And so I quit my job. And I started my business back in 2006 and, outsourced kind of all of my needs. I was living with my parents and starting this business, which I fully funded and, with the support of my parents, obviously, and was able to take care of them. Right. And so it's important that you really do get clear about what matters most to you. And that's the second thing I've learned. It's a piece of resilience and it's a piece of clarity around what really matters, right?
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Because what you said, and I don't want to skip over, because you said you quit your setup job,
Yes.
right? Your ideal, I'm about to be a boss chick, right? This is setting me up. Like, you quit that, and you talk about resiliency, and you talk about doing it so that you could be available to your parents, right? That's huge. That is so huge. And so I don't want to kind of just skip by that. Can you speak to, number one, how old were you in 2006?
Yeah, I was about 33, 34.
Okay. And so what was already working or developing in you that you had enough faith and courage to say, I choose my parents over this job?
So I have always known, I haven't always articulated it the way I'm about to you, but I have always known that in the words of Yolanda Adams, it's already all right. Right. The way I say that now is that we are always universally well held. You will always get what you need when you need it. Always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't feel that way. Sometimes it doesn't look that way, but we always get what we need when we need it. And so I knew, I was like, I'll be fine. What I won't be fine with is having two sick parents and missing time with them. Like, I was not okay with that idea. And I'm really glad that I did it because that happened in '06. My mother died 6 years later in 2012. Right? My dad died at the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And so I didn't know that decision would mean from 2006 until 2010, I'd be with my parents most of the time. And that's 4 years I would not have, well, really 3, because I came back in October, that I wouldn't have had. That's time I would not have had with them. It's memories I wouldn't have with my mother. It's trips I wouldn't have taken with them. Decisions. When I say that you're always universally well held and that life is happening for you, not to you, I would not have met my husband had I not quit my job. I met my husband because I started this business and hired him. He was one of the first contractors I ever hired to do some back end work on the business. So had I not been in spiritual terms, quote unquote, obedient, right? We talk about being obedient to the inner voice, right? If I hadn't been honoring of what I felt I needed to do, my life would not look anything like what it looks today. Nothing like what it looks today.
Wow. And so here's another nugget you just made. So I'm going to put the scripture in it. Obedience is better than sacrifice, right? And two things. Honor thy mother and thy father so that it can be well with you, so that you can have long life. And so the sacrifice, or what appeared to be a sacrifice, actually sets you up for the real boss chick move.
Right. I mean, I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I wouldn't be working with the kinds of clients we work with. I was looking the other day at the list of the Fortune 1000, and we're really fortunate. We have worked with or are currently working with most of the Fortune 25 companies. Like, I would not have thought that as a person who started her career at the largest consumer goods company in the world, would have a firm that worked with so many large organizations. I have 26 people who I'm honored to say work with me on a daily basis. We speak 7 different languages and operate in 4 different countries. When I was living in New Mexico, I didn't see that in my future. I didn't see that in my future. What I saw in my future was a standard corporate job, climbing that corporate ladder and doing the work that my clients do today, supporting people around people strategy and culture and leadership development. That's what I thought I would be doing inside organizations. And now I get to do it, yes, inside organizations, but for my own organization, which is very different. It's a very different life and a very different lifestyle. And you have to be able to bet on you. When you talk about things being all about you, this last piece, the third answer to your question would be, I learned to trust myself, right? Iyanla Van Zant wrote a book called Trust. And it talks about the 4 essential trusts in life, the first of which is your trust in yourself. And there's a paragraph on page 11 I read often to my clients. And it talks about, and I'm saying that because if you go get the book, if you don't go get it, go Google the PDF, go to page 11. It's the bottom of that last paragraph on that page. And she talks about self-trust. And one of the things that she says is, you have to trust that even if things don't work out the way you want them to, that you will be okay.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes what breaks us is that we believe we won't be okay. We can't find a path out. And I know that to be true because, like I said before, 6 years after I quit my job, my mother died.
Mm-hmm.
My mother died actually 6 years to the month later. I just realized that today. I quit my job. My last day in corporate was October 31st, 2006. My mother died October 4th, 2012.
Wow.
And wow, yeah, I hadn't grounded that till just this moment. And so she was my example of unconditional love on the planet. She died 5 days after my wedding unexpectedly. And what I learned so much in that moment, right? In those moments after her passing. One of which is that as a leader, we're all going through something. And it's your responsibility to decide how you're going to deal with that. It's not always all about you. It's about who you serve sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be able to hold what's happening to you.
Mm-hmm.
So I was off for 3 weeks. I was with my husband and my father. And when I came back to work, everybody said, how was the wedding? Oh my God, how was the wedding? And I had to decide, right? How am I going to deal with this news that my mother died unexpectedly? Am I going to tell people? Am I not going to tell people? And the decision that I made was I would tell people if they asked at the end of our business, right? So like you, I coach people. I do strategic advisory with large organizations. And so I'm on these calls with directors and vice presidents and, chief fill in the blank officer of the organization. And at the end of the conversations, people were like, oh, how was the wedding? And my answer was almost to a T. The wedding was wonderful. And unfortunately, 5 days later, my mother died unexpectedly. And I was silent. And I did that for 2 reasons. One, because what happened to me and the reason they were calling me were not in any way related. We had work to do. If we got to the question and they wanted to know how the wedding was, happy to share.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to share. But it's not relevant. It's not relevant to what's happening right now. What's happening right now is you and I are in a conversation. And if you're going to be all about you and reclaiming yourself, you got to understand what's relevant about you in the moment. What was relevant, right? What was relevant about me in the moment was the service I was there to provide. Now, the other thing I learned was people were going to have all kinds of reactions, from acting like I didn't say it to busting out in tears. None of those reactions were about me. So the bonus, what have I learned, is that, nothing that people do is about you. Right?
Say that again. Say that one again.
Nothing that people do is about you. We make up story all of the time about what's going on with people, and we base that from our orientation, from what we believe about ourselves. This person is doing this to me for XYZ reason. Nope. More than likely, it has absolutely nothing to do with you. And that can be really hard to hear. I mean, I've had situations where I've had clients who weren't responding to our prospecting emails or to checking in on them or whatever. And suddenly they respond and they're like, thank you so much for following up. I needed this thing and now I need this thing. And can you help us? Right. The reason that they weren't following up had nothing to do with me, but it would be easy to say, oh, they decided they don't want to do business with us anymore. Oh, blah, 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 blah. No,
Right.
they have a whole job and a whole life and a whole company that's got stuff going on in it. And it has nothing to do with me or what's happening in my world, that they're not responding. The same is true of your friends and your family. I mean, I'm sitting on the sofa a week ago, minding my own business. I get a text message from a very dear friend of mine. And she's like, the message starts off with, we're fine. That's never going to end well. Like, that setup is not a setup for success. It's like something has happened. And she had a home invasion.
Oh, God.
And so someone broke into their home, and he was having a mental health episode. Fortunately, her spouse was home. Her husband was there with her. And, the intruder never came into their bedroom, which he could have done. He walked right past their bedroom door and didn't even touch it. But, how do you reclaim your safety in your own space, right? So now I keep checking on her, but we haven't had a conversation. I'll see her next week. At the end of the day, though, I know there's a lot going on for them.
Yes. And
right?
they're not fine.
And they're not fine. And they're not fine. Yeah. Right? They're not fine. And they may not want to talk about the fact that they're not fine.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So it's my job as their friend just to say, hey, I'm here if you need me. Right? And not to assume because I'm going through whatever I'm going through that now suddenly, they don't want to talk to me. No, that's not true.
Right.
That's not true. She's trying to figure out how to feel safe in her own home.
Right. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with me. Nothing. Right? So yeah, so those are the ways I think fundamentally I've been able to be really able to persevere in my life and to deal with the things that have come up. This while we were out of the country, I got very sick, on my flight back. And I was very worried about my health and what that was going to mean for me. Since I've seen you, my mother-in-law has passed away, we're dealing with all that transition in the family. But that doesn't mean that life stops. I learned that the hard way because when my mother died, I wanted the world to stop. Right. There were 1,000 people at her funeral. She was an amazing person who touched literally thousands of people. That's not all. There were lots of people who couldn't make it to the funeral. And I felt like, the world is supposed to stop because she's gone. And it doesn't. And so you've got to figure out how, in the face of whatever's happening to you, you're going to remember that life is happening for you, not to you, and that you're going to get up and do the things that are the cause of the result you want to see in your life.
Yes.
Because that's the only way you're going to change your circumstances.
That's it.
You do the things that are the cause of the effect you want to see in your life.
So, just as a recap, the first thing you said is owning your yes. That was the first thing. So the three things for those of you who are maybe just tuning in and you're like, what are they talking about? This is a delicious conversation about you and how you get back to you. And so the three things that my guest, Miss Cornelia, said that she uses that are her pillars that help her overcome obstacles in life and business was number one, being very clear about her yes, owning her yes, and taking responsibility for the yes that she gives. That's number one. Number two, she talked about being resilient. That's so important, which is the ability to bounce back, which is your ability to keep moving forward in spite of hell breaking loose all around you. You like, it's going to be all right. And I love how you said the universe holds you. And essentially, what I heard was trust in the Lord with all our heart, lean not to thy own understanding, right? In all your ways, acknowledge him because God got you. God got you. And then number three, you talked about, just being able to have these boundaries and being clear, right, about it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right, and not allowing the situation and the circumstances to move you.
Right. You've got to be clear
You
about,
gotta be clear
are
about
you doing the cause, right?
it. Right.
Whatever effect you want, everything you want in your life is created, is received, is achieved by a certain cause.
Hmm.
And if you don't understand the universal law of cause and effect, if you don't understand how to get the effect that you want based on your daily, weekly, monthly, yearly action, you're not going to see the effect that you want. And so when you think about things being about you, you've got to get clear about what's the effect that you want and then be committed to doing the cause that creates that effect.
That's a mic drop. I have nothing else to say. I have nothing else to say. Be committed to the cause. Be okay. I can, yeah. Mic drop. So, for those of you, I think you need to listen to this a couple of times. So, there are more juicy conversations happening on Saturday, Amazing You Day Summit. Go to www.omazingevents.com so that you can register because it will not be streamed live. You don't want to miss out on more delicious conversations with my guests. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. And I appreciate your yes today. Have a great day on purpose. Love you.